Hi folks, Brian from the pole barn of bad decisions and broken dreams where the coffee's always hot. Will someone please help me figure out how to keep this damn coffee hot? Thank you for stopping in. Grab yourself a cup of hot coffee and enjoy the video. We're back on the 1966 Chevy Nova today. Enjoy the video and hope you have a great day. Hi folks, and welcome back to the pole barn of bad decisions and broken dreams where the coffee's always hot. Nope, can't keep it hot. It's not going to be hot, but we're going to press on and do some work anyways. We're back on the 1966 Chevy Nova, and we're working on some engine parts now. And what we've got is we've ordered a new exhaust manifold for the straight six 230 engine, and it came in. It has got some oil on it to keep corrosion away during shipping and storage. So what we've got to do is we've got to clean it. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a non-flammable parts cleaner and we're going to spray it down and try and get all that oil off. We're going to take a regular water-based degreaser, spray it down, use a brush, agitate it, get in all those nooks and crannies. It's definitely a sand casting and it's very rough. Probably not going to be using a whole lot of shop towels because that'll leave stuff on the piece itself. And then we'll hit it with a flammable parts cleaner just to get rid of any residual. Probably after that, we'll probably hit it with a little bit of acetone and wipe it off with a regular shop towel that's not going to leave a bunch of crud on it. In the end, we're going to, excuse me, in the end, we're going to put some metal prep on it and get that metal ready to have paint adhered to it, and then we're going to put a high temp paint on it as well. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a cup of coffee, and enjoy the video. So when we go to break the engine in, we are going to use the original intake manifold, and we've gone through this same process that we're going to show you here today on the intake manifold. Here it is, all cleaned up. It needs a wipe down of acetone, and we will get that painted. The exhaust manifold is going to be black, but we're going to go ahead and paint the intake manifold with the Chevy orange color paint. Here's the new exhaust manifold ready for cleaning. Now we do actually have the original exhaust manifold, but problem I'm worried about is let's see here. Just turned around here. I had to do a repair. The old exhaust manifold was actually cracked, so I brazed it up, and I'm not real confident in my brazing skills because I haven't done a lot of brazing. So I decided for the cost of 128 bucks, a brand new exhaust manifold might be a better idea for our break-in. For final assembly on the engine, we picked up a new set of exhaust manifolds from 12-bolt Tom, and they are beautiful. But we can't use them during the break-in. We're going to use the old style for the break-in because we have to run the engine at 2,000 RPMs, and I'm afraid that's probably going to be a little too much heat for these exhaust manifolds, and we'll have to do a break-in on the exhaust manifolds themselves, which entails running the car for 10 minutes, letting it cool down, running the car for 20 minutes, let it cool down, run the car for 30 minutes, let it cool down. And then that will cure the heat coating or on the 12-bolt Tom exhaust manifolds. The engine is all installed, and we're ready to bolt that exhaust manifold and the intake manifold on when the paint is done drying. Might be a little hard to see, but I've got another straight 6 230 that I picked up for $40, and that exhaust manifold is going to end up going on that and being installed in the 1932 Chevy 4-door Master Deluxe sedan when we start on that project. Here's a look at the 32 sedan. You can see we've chopped the top and taken 4 inches out of it. And we've gone ahead and we've started on replacing all the wood in that 32 Chevy because in 1936, or until 1936, the structure of a 32 Chevy is actually all wood. So that was all rotted out, and we had to remove all of that, and we're replacing it with metal. Here we have a close-up of the intake manifold, and that has been cleaned with a degreaser and is ready for a wipe down in acetone and ready for paint. And we'll get our gloves put on here and start spraying this down with some degreaser. Now this is the non-flammable degreaser. I've got a towel here ready to use, and we're going to use a brush to agitate things and get into any of the nooks and crannies. And we'll see how this works. Yeah, I can see that oil coming off right now. Because this piece is so rough, we want to make sure that we get all of the oil off so we have good paint adhesion. We definitely don't want our exhaust manifold flaking and cracking. We'll get it in here and we'll turn it over and get the other side all cleaned up. It's a nice thing about this non-flammable stuff. I can spray it around in here and get it all cleaned up, get it agitated, and then rinse it off on this old towel that I've got here. Getting a good rinse on that. Get it coated real good. Now, one of the other nice things about the non-flammable degreaser is that we don't have a problem with it immediately evaporating, so we can get that cleaning action with the brush here and get it cleaned off. Get this turned over here. Get the opposite side. All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to take this out over the top of an approved container and rinse this off with the non-flammable parts cleaner and get any leftover off of it. Now we're just going to repeat the process with the water-based degreaser, cleaning it all up, getting it all cleaned up, getting any residual grease left on that, and then dried off. You know, one of the nice things about the water-based degreaser is that it doesn't evaporate quickly at all. So it's nice. We can get a good foaming action going on here. Get that grease all loosened up and out of all of the sand casting and the rough surface. And then rinse it off. What we're doing now is just rinsing it off with straight water. Get any of that degreaser off of there. There's a couple of spots in case we missed them. Get our work surface wiped off here. Now we'll dry it off. Okay, she's all degreased. We've used our water-based degreaser on it. And now we have to spray it off with the flammable degreaser. And then we got to let it dry. What I've done is I've got the exhaust manifold sitting in front of a 220 heater and warming it up. One of the problems that you have with cast iron is that it's very porous and it can hold moisture. So it has to be completely dry before we put the etching fluid onto that exhaust manifold. We don't want to have any trapped moisture or contaminants inside. What I'm going to do is pull this back up onto the bench and probably take a map torch and warm it up and burn off any residual chemicals or anything that's still sitting on that exhaust manifold and get that as dry as possible before we start to etch. All right, what I've got here is my bench vise, or a little vise that I've got here, and I'm going to degrease this vise here and make sure that we're not going to transfer any contaminants to our exhaust manifold when we clamp it down in this vise to warm it up. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to try and not start the shop on fire and get this warmed up and get any contaminants that are on this exhaust manifold off. When you're doing this, it doesn't show up on camera very well, but you can actually see the contaminants burning off. You can see the little sparks on there, some of those contaminants that are coming off, and you can see the moisture that's inside this cast iron evaporate out of the cast iron. Also, if there's any hairs or furs or pieces of cloth or anything that are on here, it'll burn those off and make a good surface for paint to adhere to. We're going to get a nice clean work surface here to lay our etching fluid down on. And this is all in an attempt to keep from transferring any contaminants to the exhaust manifold before we paint it. Ooh, hot. Wow. Man, that's hot. Ah, holy smokes. Okay. I think she's dry. And let's see here. Need to let this cool down a bit because we definitely don't want that etching fluid to evaporate off as soon as we put it on there. Now we're going to take some tape and we're going to tape off all of our mating surfaces, our gasket mating surfaces, so that we don't get any etching compound on those surfaces. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some rubbing alcohol and I'm going to clean my hands so I don't transfer any oils from my hands onto the exhaust manifold. We've got our metal prep solution ready to go in a small plastic container with a brush, and we're going to start wetting out the exhaust manifold. It has to stay wet for a total of 20 minutes for it to etch the metal. It basically causes corrosion on the metal to keep it from corroding and adds a zinc additive to the exhaust manifold for paint adhesion. And here we go. We want to brush that on. Make sure everything is nice and wet. And then we have to keep wetting it throughout the 20 minutes to make sure that the process goes correctly. If you look closely, you can see the bubbling action of the acid working its way into the cast iron and etching it. The etching process is now complete. What we need to do is we need to make that acid that we applied on the exhaust manifold inert. So the only way you can do that is to rinse it off with clean water. We'll take care of that. We'll be right back, and the drying process for the exhaust manifold will start all over again. The etching action is completed on the exhaust manifold, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, I've already taken it out and sprayed it off with clean water, but I'm going to take some more clean water, I'm going to spray it on, I'm going to give it a little bit of scrub with it to get down into all the nooks, crannies, the valleys, and the peaks of this sand-casted exhaust manifold, and get it, all of the acid completely off it and inert. We'll just spray it down here. And get it nice and wet. Apparently I've got a phone call coming in. We'll get that in just a second here. But we want to get this all scrubbed off, and any residual dust or anything else can get dislodged from the peaks and valleys. Then we're going to dry it off and set it in front of the heater and get that drying action starting once again. Okay, we've got our exhaust manifold all etched and ready to go. We took the torch and blew it over it again just to make sure anything that, any pieces of fur or paper or anything from wiping it down was burnt off it. It's all nice and clean. We're going to begin painting, but first we're going to have to retape the gasket flange sides because we took those off when we after we etched it, make sure that there was no etching fluid underneath that tape. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to retape the mounting flanges, and then we'll start painting. So there you have it. The exhaust manifold's been painted, and that's how you get a good finish on an exhaust manifold and protect your investment. What we'll do is we'll wait until this can be handled, and then we'll move it down in front of that 220 heater and let it kick off a little bit. While we were painting the exhaust manifold, we took the intake manifold and put a coat of Chevy orange on that. I'm also reasonably sure I painted my forehead Chevy orange, and I may have a few ginger hairs for bangs for a little while. The first thing we're going to do is chase the threads on all the intake and exhaust manifold mounting locations. Now we'll go ahead and install the intake manifold and exhaust manifold studs, applying a little bit of anti-seize to them for ease of removal at a later date. We'll need to run 2 bolts down the stud so that we can tighten them up. We've got the exhaust manifold and the intake manifold installed on the straight 6 250 engine. As you can see, we installed the original exhaust manifold back on the engine because I want to take the new exhaust manifold and run it through a couple of heat cycles and get that paint cured. We don't want it to fail at 2,000 RPMs for 20 minutes getting super hot. We want it to cure correctly so it lasts a long time. Here's a look at the exhaust manifold after it's been painted and put in front of that 220 heater to cure the paint a little bit. We want to run it through a couple of heat cycles on an engine that is broken in so it doesn't immediately fail when running the engine at 2,000 RPMs and getting super hot for 20 minutes. Hi folks, Brian from the pole barn of bad decisions and broken dreams. Nope, coffee's still not hot. Want to thank you for stopping in and enjoying our videos. If you really liked them, please subscribe and like so we can upload more content. Thanks for coming in, and have a good day.